Welcome to hashtag 52 Boundaries. And this week we are talking about boundaries in sex. And I'm so delighted to have with me Anna Thellmann, who is a sexual intimacy coach. And she and I are going to explore where this discussion is going to take us, because I frankly have no idea. I'm really open to it. The one thing that it was really funny. I talked to a friend of mine and I said, I'm just about to record this. And he said, oh, so do you have a safe word established? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, because that's definitely a boundary that people have in sex, right?
Yes, definitely. I think it's very important to have that. I actually have one with my partner, and it's banana. Because you need something that is so out of the blue and has anything to do with what you're doing sexually. Of course, if you use bananas, use something different. But for us, we usually don't use any fruits. Bananas is the word.
Well, a good idea, probably. Well, you and I are, I have a background as a TV producer for a TV show on sexuality, which is a long, long time ago, but it's still, when you deal with sex pretty much 24/7, because that's what we did, I learned a lot of things, and boundaries was definitely something that came up over and over and over and over again. No matter where people were having sex, who they had sex with, boundaries was really crucial. And not everybody had a safe word, but people definitely, the people who had functional, healthy sex lives knew when to say yes and when to say no. What is your experience?
With my clients?
Yeah.
It depends. Some come to me and they have lost the worth for themselves. So particularly women who have little self-esteem, little confidence, and are worried that they lose their partner if they don't say yes. Mm-hmm. It's this sort of, let's get it over with.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there are no boundaries. It's all about making sure that the other person stays with them, giving them what they think the other person wants in order to not be left alone, in order not to be neglected, or in order not to be cheated on, or whatever. Yeah. So it's no boundary whatsoever.
I would love to explore the kind of boundaries, as you said, when somebody doesn't have the self-esteem to say no, to do things that they may find unsafe. I mean, like, I know that in the past that I probably didn't say, oh, this doesn't quite work for me fast enough at some point, but I learned very quickly that if I wanted to stay in relationship with myself, that was really important. But not everybody does that. As you said, people want to keep their partner. There are all sorts of reasons why they do that. So do people, when they work with you, do they talk about their needs and their desires?
To me, yes. To their partner, usually not.
Okay.
And that's where it comes from, then, not to have the boundary or not to reinforce the boundary, even if they set themselves the boundary. But because they are so worried, so afraid to talk about their needs. Again, because they might think they embarrass themselves if they talk about their fantasies, or their partner might not like what they suggest to do. So it's all, again, the fear and the lack of self-confidence, self-belief, and self-trust. Yeah. That then blows out the boundary.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of misconception around sex in general, that we should just know what to do and just go with the flow and everything will happen magically. And if it doesn't work, then, oh, well, especially women, just go, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. For me, I can say from my experience, my first time, I was very, very lucky that I had an experienced partner that I was with already. So we had a proper relationship and he was guiding me, because I had literally no idea. I was surprised.
But how do you teach somebody who doesn't know how to set the boundaries, because there's no experience, there's no frame of reference? How do you teach somebody how to put those boundaries in place? That takes some self-awareness, doesn't it? How did he help you?
Well, he asked me, do you like this? And I said yes, or I said no, and I don't know. Well, what are you doing there? So what's going on here? But he constantly asked me if I like it. And I think he was also very aware of how I behaved, how my breathing was, how my body reacted. And if I was tense or if I was loose, he was taking care of me.
Yeah.
And with that, I could then identify, oh, I like this, or no, I don't like this. Or maybe do it differently. Can you do it differently? But yeah, you need to, I think sometimes it's important to experience it in order for you to have then set a clear boundary. No, not ever again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That takes into consideration, or that there's a prerequisite that your partner actually has the awareness to notice these things. As you said, there's changes in breathing, there's there's people are tense, and sometimes, and I don't want to generalize here too much, but my experience, and is also with clients and in the work that I've done, and I'm sure, I don't know if that's for you, but it's often the men who are not really aware of what's going on for the woman. I think, are women more aware of what's going on for men?
No, with my clients, they are not, because women, they think, oh, he just wants to have sex. It doesn't matter what I want. He doesn't care. He doesn't see me. For him, it's okay. And I think it's the same for men, because they are overwhelmed with all the emotions that women bring out on a day-to-day basis. And then in sex, of course, the man thinks like a man. So he thinks probably the woman thinks the same.
Yeah,
so it's the miscommunication there, isn't it? Or not communicating at all. That you say, so what do you like? What do you think about this?
Yeah. Or I just noticed you tensed up. Was that because you liked it, or was it because you didn't like it? But again, men have their doubts, and they get into this, oh, I have to get through this, right? Just as women have this, I have to get through this. And when there's no communication about whether something has worked or not, you get into this rut, and then all of a sudden you have two people where sex is a chore. It's not something where they connect, where they explore, where they're playful, where they're intimate and gentle, and any kind of, whatever technique they prefer, tough and tumble, rough and tumble. It's just going through the motions. And then when you've got rigid boundaries around that, then you will stick to these techniques, whether they work for you or not. And that's pretty sad.
It is. But I believe, or from my client's perspective, I know that the more self-aware you are with yourself, so the more aware, not maybe in the sexual practices or what you like during sex, not particularly that, but in general, when you're more aware of what you like, what you don't like, who you are, how does your body react in different situations? The more you have that awareness for yourself, the more you have the awareness for others, particularly then for your partner.
Yeah.
So I believe, I see that many people aren't there yet. And unless we talk about it, unless we have that talk, we will never know.
Yeah. So when we talk about, we cook something for our partner, and when they don't like it, we don't cook it again, or we change it, and we're much more vocal about what we like eating and what we don't like eating. But then when it comes to sex, no, we don't talk about this stuff. And it's just, I find it really, really interesting that there are so many taboos around sex, which is the way we are all created, right? I mean, and it's so much more than just the what's it called? It's really funny, because you and I are both German, and we've been speaking German before this, and now I'm struggling to find my words in English.
Say it in German, I translate.
So again, I mean, it's the most natural thing on earth to have sex. I mean, you look around, everybody does it, and yet it can be so complicated, and it can be so painful and so unfulfilling and unsatisfying because we don't define what we like and what we don't like. And that should be really easy. I mean,
but sometimes you have these partners who just do the one position, and that's all you know. And sometimes how you don't know what you don't know. So how do you know that there is so much other pleasure out there when you just know that one position or these two positions?
Which is why we are advocating flexible boundaries, right?
Yeah, and I would also like to add more a sense of adventure and to explore more, be curious.
Yeah. And again, there's nothing wrong with saying, you know, here's a fantasy that I have. And if it stays a fantasy, then that's fine. It's my fantasy. But if you wanted to play that out with me, that would be great. But there's so much judgment, and there's some really good books around that, and you know, and it's about also exploring what works for a man, what doesn't work for a man, what works for a woman, what doesn't work for a man. And we're talking again, whether that's a heterosexual or a homosexual relationship, it doesn't really matter. But it's about what works for the various kinds of equipment that we've got, right? And for the kind of stimuli that we require, and yeah, and so being able to say that, you know, like, again, women are more, I mean, like, there is no erotic literature for men, really, right? Do men read
like these books, like where she is he's the pirate and she is the daughter of the Duke and stuff like that? I don't know.
Where you have the covers and you can tell from how much he's not wearing what kind of level of sex description you're going to get in the book, right? Nothing like that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was measurable on the
clothing. I learned all of that on the TV show. Yeah, so again, the barer the guy, the more sex in the book. So but again, there's no genre for male erotic literature. And there is very little pornography for women. And when it is for women, it's vastly different than pornography for men. But we think men have to comply to the pirate fantasy, and women have to be like the women in the porn movies, which are so not like any kind of sex that I have ever had.
Yeah, I like that. I just putting my picture together with the pirate and the porn star. What an interesting mix.
I'm here to fix your washing machine. Okay, let's get to it. Yeah, so again, if we're bringing it back to boundaries, it's about saying, let's find out what else is there. Not in a way that it's disrespectful of the other person and going, you know, I really like this, let's just do it. But it's also being open and saying, you know what, like Brussels sprouts, I've tried them once and I've never liked them again. Well, actually, I do like Brussels sprouts, but broccoli, I'm not a fan of broccoli. You know, like, okay, I'll eat it occasionally, but it wouldn't be my favorite meal. But because you like eating it, I might eat some with you. Right?
Yeah.
But if it's something that I really don't ever want to eat again, I won't.
Yeah. But then I think it's important to be curious and say, okay, what else can we do alternatively?
Yeah, exactly.
So whatever it is, there is probably some sort of other technique, position, or whatever that you could do instead. And maybe that's even better or gives more pleasure than the fantasy itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is that so many people try something once, and when it doesn't work, they just stop. Yeah. Or when it only works for one partner, that doesn't work for the other, then the partner it worked for says, okay, fine. If it doesn't work for you, then we'll stop anyways. It's about saying, okay, just because I've tried it once and I didn't sit in a car and drove off immediately, knew how to get through peak hour traffic in the pouring rain. I had to learn how to drive a car. I had to deal with gears and stick shift and all of these things. And anything requires learning. But if we are not open to saying, what else is there and what gives me pleasure, we're never going to find out.
Yeah, but I think that's oftentimes you have this one particular experience that isn't probably the nicest one.
Yeah.
And that, because when I talk to my clients, also to girlfriends, when we talk about the first time, I haven't met many people who told me that their first time was good. They felt comfortable. They felt loved. They had this special experience.
Yeah.
It was more like, I wanted to get it over with. I wanted to have it, or he wanted it. Oh, we were drunk. So it starts with that first experience. And I think we build on that with the trust about ourselves, about our partner that we choose, that we have, and how we communicated then and how we set our boundaries. Because we started off not having any boundaries in some cases. And that just continues because that's what we used to. And that's where we then say to this point and not further. No, I've done that. I don't want to do that ever again. I'm not open to it because I'm still so hurt actually from what happened the first time.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're switching from no boundaries, as in I've got no idea what to do, to rigid boundaries, as in that didn't work, so we're not going to do that again. So we're creating the spongy boundaries. And then you add to that, you know, there might have been some sexual pleasure, but we weren't able to identify that. And then we add to that the guilt and the shame that comes with education, with religious beliefs, with taboos, with all sorts of other things. And again, with personal experiences, and it becomes extremely unsatisfactory and very limiting.
Yeah. So what to do?
Educate people.
Yes. But how do we, I mean, I think it's when you're at school, you get the education, or you could influence to educate children, teenagers, etc. But how do you educate adults?
Like this? Go and talk to your partner. If you're watching this and listening to this, go and talk to your partner. Find out, what do they like?
Yeah.
And if you've been married for 25 years, ask them anyways.
Then in particular, you might be amazed what comes out. Yeah.
And when you're dealing with children, talk to them about the fact that pornography is not sex. Because there's all this, you know, children literally have access to all sorts of distorted imagery around what sex is supposed to be like, that they grow up with all of these expectations and all of these fears. And again, shame about not being, you know, not being built like the influencer on Instagram or the porn star that they, you know, because they have access to all of this now. But talk to them, and it's again, sex is more than just a physical activity.
Yes, and it starts so much earlier, doesn't it? It's not just the act itself, the intercourse.
Yeah,
it's the foreplay. How that there's a saying, foreplay starts after the orgasm.
Yeah. Again, yeah, there are all sorts of different ways in which people say, you know, become more intimate, get the orgasm out of the way, and then really engage. Yes. Or just don't have any orgasms for a long time until you're really comfortable with each other. Know each other's body, find out what they're all about. Yeah, so there are all sorts of different ways in which you can increase and enhance your intimacy. And again, respect somebody's boundaries.
Yeah.
So what do you do with somebody who's solely focused on their own orgasm? That's the goal. The orgasm is the goal.
Men or women?
Either or both.
Either. Okay. So we're talking about a client comes to me and their partner is solely focused on their orgasm.
Yeah, because that's fairly rigid boundaries. It's just me, right?
I would ask if I could talk to the partner, which I probably can't. But I would ask my client then, what would they like it to be? And I know you would say, yeah, I want to be part of it. I want to involve them. But we're coming then to this, what do you want? How would you like to enjoy the pleasure with your partner. And when you know what you want, that's where you set your boundaries, as well as that's where you set your needs. And that's when you then know what you can communicate to your partner.
Yeah.
So that would be my step. First, know what you want, then learn how to communicate it in a way that doesn't offend. Because we don't want the partner to then say, okay, I'm not doing it anymore, or, oh, I didn't know, and freeze up or whatever. We want to communicate it in a way that it's both ways, to keep it open, keep the communication open. And then I'm fairly sure that the partner would want to pleasure my client as well. Because I think when we're in that mindset that it's only about us, there is more to it. It's not just selfishness or just being in your own little bubble. There is usually something behind it. And by communicating, this is my need, this is what I would like to us to do. It comes into the awareness of the partner, who then can say, okay, oh, I wasn't aware that I did that. Together.
We talked about safe word at the beginning. And I think that what we could also do is, you could also introduce a way of communicating, go on, keep going, you know, and that could be, again, that could be a sound that you make, a word that you say, even if it's yes, or it could be moving somebody's hand somewhere, you know, and just saying, there are all sorts of non-verbal ways in which you can communicate that somebody can keep doing what they're doing because it's enjoyable, without getting into a lecture of, you know, this really works for me. But I think the more we talk about this, the more I realize that communicating these issues is just issues in the sense of not problems, but needs and desires, is just so important, and that we don't have the skills. And before we started recording, you and I talked about the fact that a healthy sex life starts with self-love. And so if we're teaching somebody, so I'm just dreaming up a sex education program here. So love yourself first, set the boundaries around what is acceptable for you and what isn't, and then learn the skills to have the difficult conversations, not in the sense that they're difficult, but the uncomfortable ones, the ones where you actually have to, you know, I think I'm using a German word here now, jump over your shadow, you know, like really getting into that. I may not want to talk about it, but it's going to be really important that we do and have the conversation, and then don't expect that everything's going to be perfect, but that everything is still going to be progress, that you and process, that you still need to get into this place of, yes, show me what you like, show me what you don't like. And again, coming from that place of, this is something that's going to support us in our relationship, no matter how long that relationship lasts, right?
Yeah. And with the self-love comes, of course, the self-belief and the self-trust, and that you don't take it personally. So you can go into that conversation knowing that even if you get rejected in the first instance, even if it's not the outcome you're hoping for, it's okay. It has nothing to do with you. It's just, you had this in your mind for so long and you just jumped it on your partner. Like, by the way, this is what I would like to do. And they need time to process. They need to think about it, to see how they feel about it, or maybe come up with something new. And when you love yourself, when you have that self-trust, you know that it's okay. And you don't fall into that, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, I'm so ashamed, I won't talk about it ever again. Because then we just repeat the cycle.
Yeah. And that's really important, again, whether it's a long-term relationship or a short-term one, or even a one-night stand. You know, you may want to, you know, again, the conversation may be different, but I think it's even possible in a one-night stand to say, this is what I like, instead of going, well, it's just going to be a one-night stand and I'm just satisfying some physical urges here. But that whether I have an orgasm or not doesn't really matter, you know, but it's that sense of, I'm fully engaging myself here from a place of self-love and respect for myself and the other person. And wanting to getting pleasure out of it, that's way more than the orgasm. And although we know that the orgasm matters, but other things matter as well.
Yes. I think kissing is an amazing thing. And I
Yes.
know at the beginning of a relationship, when you're in love, you kiss all the time till your mouth hurts, till your jaw hurts. So it's like, and we forget that. We just focus, like you said before, we just after a while, we don't have that intimacy anymore.
Mm.
Or we don't, if we talk about intimacy, we talk about spending time together, appreciating one another, doing these little acts of service, etc. It doesn't happen anymore because now we're so used to our day-to-day life, and the same is with sex. We don't treasure it anymore.
The other thing I find is that people think that sex has to be absolutely spontaneous, that you cannot schedule sex. So you cannot schedule sexual desire. Well, you can actually. I know that I have two friends who got married fairly late in their lives, and they both decided that they wanted their own private bedrooms. They liked sleeping by themselves because that's what they were used to. But what they did is they set every Saturday was set aside for sex and for play. And they went in that very deliberately, and they discussed things and they planned it. So it became a celebration of their relationship. And again, they tried different things, and they created an environment that was, what was conducive to maximum sexual pleasure. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it, and they thrived. And it was really amazing to see them many years after they got together, still having that same kind of glow about them that you often find in couples that have just gotten together.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because when we think about it, it's the same, not the same, but it's similar to when on Saturday I'm going to get the ice cream that I love. So in that sense, to just create it. But I think for that to be this experience, to look forward to it, if sex isn't enjoyable for you now, even with planning, it won't be enjoyable. That's not the trick to it.
Yeah.
There needs to be this communication to make it the experience that both partners want.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I keep using the word again very much today, because I think I've talked about this for a long time when we were doing the TV show. It was just, come on, people, it's not that difficult. But I have to admit, it was an education process for me as well, because I started talking to people I would have never dreamed of talking to in real life, porn stars, sex workers, you name it. It was pretty amazing. So what I'm hearing, and what I think that what we both agree on, is communication is absolute key.
Yeah.
And the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to stretch myself, even if it feels uncomfortable, and see what happens, but not to the point of it's painful, or it's something that goes against my ethics or my values or whatever it is. But it's about being and communicating that and saying, I'm willing to give this a go. But if it becomes really uncomfortable, banana.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, be curious about it, explore.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So any final words that you have that you really want us all to know?
I want you all to know that it's amazing to love yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you have that, your relationship will flourish, your sex life will flourish. So start with you. You can't change anyone else. You can only change yourself. So be the change.
Oh God, I feel we've just warmed up here. We've just had wonderful foreplay. and there's so much more to talk about. But again, if anybody wants to, they know where to find you. And if somebody wants to talk to me about things that I have learned as a producer, yes, I can give you all sorts of tips and hints and all sorts of things. You are much more going to help people really get their orgasm back and everything that goes with that. Thank you so much for this, Anna. It's been absolutely delightful. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And I look forward to seeing and hearing you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.